The anime Death Note was, for a while, one of the most popular anime in many Western communities dedicated to the genre. Much has been made of the battle of wits between L, his successors, and Light, as well as the heavy symbolism and moving dialogue of the series. The soundtrack definitely goes pretty hard too, I have to say. But what we're going to talk about today is arguably my favorite aspect of Death Note. First, a little summary. Light Yagami is a bored young man on his way out of high school and into university. The son of a police chief and a straight-A student testing at the top of his class, one day Light finds a notebook while leaving school. The rules of the notebook are complex, but it's essentially an occult murder weapon. Any person whose name is written in the book while the user has their face in mind dies. Light tries the book and unexpectedly kills 2 men who were in the process of committing heinous crimes. He takes it on himself to cleanse the world of rotten individuals. When confronted by the owner of the book, a god of death, Light declares his second purpose, to become the god of a new world. The story follows Light's increasingly harrowing attempts to kill criminals and bring the world under the control of his serial killer identity, Kira. Along the way, he meets resistance from police officers, agents, and detectives who try to stop him, including the fan favorite and counterpart super genius, L. The relationship between Light and L is going to be the cornerstone of this short video in some ways, but I'd also like to note that after Light defeats L, a final trap is sprung, where L's contingency plan, his 2 successors, Nier and Mello, independently go on the hunt for Kira. Through their combined actions and Mello's sacrifice, Nier defeats Light, and the God of Death writes Light's name in his notebook, killing him. There's some key dialogue that I'd like to look over when bringing forward the core topic of this video. First, when L and Light are gearing up for their battle of wits, each having revealed himself to the other, they make a mutual declaration. Both say the same thing. I will hunt you down wherever you are hiding, and I will eliminate you. I am justice. At a surface level, this exchange is pretty clear in its meaning. Light and L are engaged in a battle against each other personally, and whoever wins will carry their vision of what justice means into the future. This also implicitly means that L is more or less defending the present justice system by default, using existing mechanisms to gain evidence against Kira so that he might convict him and sentence him to death. Light is playing a different game by his own rules. If he can find out L's face and true name or get somebody else to do it for him, he can kill him, and Kira's vision of justice would be served, as opposed to Japan's or any other country's legal justice. However, slowly over the course of the narrative, we see the world fall more and more under Kira's control. Mob justice occurs on Kira's behalf, and the police and the world's government slowly cease to oppose Kira officially, and then begin to support him practically, going so far as to kill Mello's accomplice, Matt, for defying Kira. Another character emerges at around this time in the story too. As the world falls under Kira's sway, Light evades detection by acting through intermediaries, one of whom is Teru Mikami. Mikami is a very interesting character who clearly worships Kira personally, but is profiled in the series as having a very strong sense of justice. He always stood up for others, and slowly came to despise those who did not share his sentiments. He saw them as lesser, of weak moral character, and deserving of deletion from society and from life. Critically, Mikami is a prosecutor, an actual agent of the legal system, working towards convictions. He is simultaneously a character who is conventionally just, and also one who acts outside the justice system out of his own personal sense of justice. Mikami and Light are 2 different characters altogether. Where Light is self-aggrandizing and clearly has a sense of justice that is built around his own ego, Mikami decenters himself from his own evaluation of what is right and worships Light's ability to change the world instead. There is one other key character worth making note of before getting to the heart of the matter, and that is Nier. In many ways, Nier is exactly like L, although he's less prone to taking personal risks. Nier acts, even more so than L, entirely within the confines of the legal system. When Light gives his big speech after finally being caught, where he waxes poetic about how killing him or stopping him would be the wrong thing to do, just because he's the only one who could create a new world, Nier only has one response. No, you're just a murderer. Many of the best characters in Death Note have one thing in common. They have a very black and white concept of justice. Sugumi Oba has been vague in some interviews with what his real thoughts on the concept of justice are, saying that he preferred to focus on writing the story as opposed to inserting that kind of commentary intentionally, so we're left to look at the series itself and draw our own conclusions. I think Death Note is kind of a depressing story, because while stopping Kira saves many lives, the world overall does not become better than it was before Kira as a result. Light might have been an egomaniacal murderer, but when he says the world had to be fixed, as much as the reasons why he thinks that and the way he means it are very sinister, he's kind of right. Countries all over the world, from Japan to the United States, have very broken justice systems that destroy lives and aren't even necessarily making the world a much better place. A character like Light thinks of himself as being above the kind of condemnation he gives others, but this is also the kind of distinction given to the legal system. If a murderer is sentenced to death, is the person who pulls the switch that much better than Kira because their motivations are different, or because they're just doing their job? Justice systems can, at the end of the day, have problems exactly like Kira's justice has, so when characters like L and Light argue over which of them represents true justice, the answer is actually more complicated than just picking one. It causes us to reflect on what justice really means and why we should care. The philosopher Michel Foucault said once in a debate with Noam Chomsky that, quote, "It seems to me that the notion of justice itself functions within a society of classes as a claim made by, and as a justification for, the class which is oppressed. And in a classless society, I'm not sure that we would still use this notion of justice." When I heard him say this, I was thrown, and I had to reevaluate much of what I thought was true about justice and injustice, because if this is true, as I now believe it might be, it has actually a lot of interesting implications for our society. For starters, this would imply that justice, as a concept, is sort of an outgrowth of the justifying ideology, the rationale of our legal system and our social relations. When Light Yagami says that he is bringing Kira's justice to the world, and that Kira is justice, he is asserting a new power relation within society and lifting himself up as a new ruling class, an elite of one, whose servants have impunity from those below him, at least in his mind. Light might be more brutal and heartless than L in many ways, but that's a matter of his specific methods and emotional state. In terms of Kira's relationship with power, he is actually not so different from L or Nier, and in a way, Nier's reassertion of the old legal formulation, that Light is merely a murderer, is only a reassertion of the old hierarchy of the justice system against the new hierarchy of Kira's justice. Therefore, who is or isn't true justice is sort of a false question. L might be more good than Light in whatever personal way we evaluate them, and their motivations as characters as well, and certainly what Kira is doing is evil, but it's juxtaposed with a system that is fraudulent. The system L and Nier implicitly defend is not a system that is making the world that much better, and for everything he was wrong about, Light was right about that. This brings us back to Mikami. It's hard not to think of Teru Mikami and not think of him as some kind of cautionary tale, intentional or not. He puts his faith in the wrong person, yes, but he also abides by a black and white ideology that destroys the world around him. Mikami starts out doing what he does, getting gratification from helping others. But his sense of right and wrong becomes a fixation that transforms into a willingness to cast judgment on the world, to kill with impunity. I've seen a lot of Mikamis in my lifetime already. People all around us who care deeply about social issues and right versus wrong can become trapped in a deeply destructive ideology, predicated possibly on a concept or framing, that of justice, which may not be eternal and may not be righteous. These concepts in human society have evolved historically. They did not grow out of the ground, and we did not discover them one day and pluck them from the trees. Are we being misled by a false concept that only leads us back around to reaffirm the status quo that we wanted to criticize in the first place? That's where I'm going to leave you today, everyone. I hope this video was provocative and that you took something away from it. I tried to keep it short and sweet to satisfy the algorithm, so leave me a comment suggesting any future topics you'd like to see, and check out my other similar videos if you liked this one. This video was made possible by my patrons at patreon.com, and will be available for them long in advance of it being available to anyone else. For early and exclusive content, become a patron and leave some engagement to support the channel. Thank you, as always, for your support.